Hi and good morning. Welcome to today's Walk and Talk. Today's topics will be the Fed meeting yesterday, and also I want to answer some questions that the audience was asking me. For example, who should they follow in crypto and how can they decide when to buy? We've talked about that when to buy already sometimes, but today we're gonna do it differently. So stay till the second and third part of the video to discover what you should actually do. One more question I want to answer is why I'm not looking into the camera all the time. Well, the answer is I'm walking like this, right? So if you look here on the floor, it's not really possible to look into the camera. So I have to make sure that I step on all the stones and don't fall down anywhere. So this is the answer to that. I try to look into the camera as good as I can, but especially here on top, most of the time I have to look on the ground. So let's get started. Yesterday, we had the Fed meeting. Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, came out to speak about the rates. Like we have estimated that there would be a 25 basis points rate cut. This was happening yesterday. So the rates were dropped about 25 basis points. It was actually a very boring Fed meeting. Like always, I watched it about half an hour. During the meeting, the markets reacted not really, almost a little negative because he was answering some questions. I also guess there is the dot plot. Let me explain what the dot plot is. The dot plot is the estimating numbers of all the Fed employees, or I think of 19 Fed employees. And what they do is they estimate how many rates cuts there will still be in this year. And what I can remember is I think there will be at least 2 or 3 more rate cuts this year. So we will get a rate cut almost every month now. This is very positive for risk on assets like Bitcoin, the stock market, the Nasdaq, and so on. But like he said also in his meeting, and as we have discussed in the video yesterday, Paul also said, answering a question from some reporter, that there was one actually employee of the Fed, or however you want to call him, that suggested to cut it by 50 basis points. And then he said, always in the past, when they have cut 50, they have done it because of some kind of urgency. So this is what we discussed yesterday. If you go back to the video, I said, if the cut will be more than 25 basis points, the markets will be worried because the markets think we are maybe in a recession already. So I understand that maybe many of you who are watching this and are looking for crypto content maybe don't find it particularly interesting to talk about these things, but we need to talk about it because this is one of the main important things, right? It is all related to global liquidity, and all risk assets are moving together with global liquidity. The more liquidity we have in the markets, the higher your asset will go. So this is important for you. But now let's get to the crypto stuff. First, I try to recall if there's something new and urgent. I've seen yesterday some news that Itna, so Itna, was actually listed on OKX, which is quite a big exchange in the Asian Pacific market. So this is very positive. I haven't seen any price moves till now. I've just checked my phone before. I didn't have time to check in very detail, but my assets are all up quite well. Not all, but the majority of the assets that I'm monitoring the most that are not spot holdings are up very well. So overnight, the market recovered a little. Bitcoin is up around 1% when I checked last. So the market is now digesting the information. And generally, I would say the news is very positive. So Itna had the OKX listing. What else happened? There is a lot of stuff going on with this new Solana Treasury company called Fort, with Kai Samani, who is setting up the company. They are talking about the fact that they're gonna really engage with the community, trying to build up other companies, meaning, so this will be the first crypto native company, so to say, that will acquire regular companies and actually transform them. He was saying in an interview that they will basically buy interesting companies and improve them or make more out of them using AI payments, AI technology to automate, and crypto payments. And because a big company or a middle-sized company, they lose around 2 or 3% for payments because they have to pay to Stripe and so on. So they could just by implementing a beautiful, nice payment rail that is using crypto could save around 2% or something like that, right? So this is an interesting strategy. Apart from that, I haven't seen much news that is really important. So let's jump into the question that I get quite a lot. Especially now, people are asking, am I too late already to get into the market? We've discussed this. My general advice is to buy much earlier. You can use, like we discuss in this video all the time, the Fear and Greed Index. You can also make areas on the chart. So you split the chart in 2 areas, basically. The lowest point of the chart is basically the entry area. Then you have a second area. And I will always suggest to draw these areas in a way that, you know, the first area is inside the price movement, and also the second is at the edge, basically. So this is the purpose, basically, of the areas, to understand, are you early or late in the chart? I will do a separate video showing you this on the chart, because it's quite difficult to understand it if I just talk about it in this way. So another way to do the right thing, or to find the right asset and find the right timing, we always talk about fear and greed and the other stuff. But today I want to talk about following the right people. We have shortly talked about this, but today I'm gonna give you some names and how you can actually track what they're doing. First of all, we have talked about the fact that global liquidity is very important. So you need to find people that are experts in global liquidity. If you just go to X and type in M2 liquidity, you will find a lot of charts, you will find a lot of information, updated information. You will discover that global M2, I'm not quite sure, but I think it's still delayed around 82 days, meaning that when liquidity is going into the market, it takes around 82 days for the Bitcoin price to react to this liquidity. So you will find a lot of information on X, but the main expert at the moment, I would say, is Michael Howell from Cross Border Capital, if you search for him, and also Rob Hall from Real Vision. So they are doing interviews together. So you just find the interview probably on Real Vision, that they are talking about global M2. It's quite boring, but they have interesting metrics. And the only thing for you is to know what is going on with global liquidity. You can just simply use ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever to just paste in the video link and get a summary. You don't have to watch all the video, but you need to know what people have expertise in a particular industry or field. This is important in life generally, right? If your friend comes to you, which is a car mechanic, you know that you can probably trust him when you ask him for advice about your car that is broken down, right? You probably don't ask your friend, which is, I don't know, a therapist or something else. She probably doesn't know much about cars, right? So you should approach the crypto industry or this industry, this trading hobby or profession, however much you are actually doing it, in the same way. You need to find people you can trust, but you will not find anybody that you can trust overall. You will find people that give you quite a good overview about everything. So I hope I can provide this to you as well. But then you have to dig into the specific experts if you really want to get good and if you really want to set the puzzle in the right way. So this is the first one. These two guys, just to give you a little more background, Jerome Powell, for example, these are traditional investors from Goldman Sachs. They know, especially now when all the institutions are coming in, it's very important to also listen to people who have experience in traditional finance, who has the people that have been into Goldman Sachs and similar companies. They know how the big players are playing the game. So it's getting more and more important to listen to this kind of people or to understand the global macro environment as more and more big players are moving into our industry. The industry is growing up and the industry is actually adopting the rules of the big players. It's very important for you to know. The second person I want to mention is Arthur Hayes. We have talked about him quite some times. Again, he is the founder of, was the founder of BitMEX, and he invented with his team the first perpetual future swaps, meaning that now if you go to any exchange and you have the opportunity to leverage trade, meaning that you put in $1,000 and you basically make a 2x leverage, set up a 2x leverage, you're able to trade with 2,000. So the exchange is borrowing money, you pay fees for it, but you have the opportunity to win, double the money, or lose all your money. So be careful with that. But Arthur Hayes, if he talks about, for example, exchanges, now he talked about hyperliquid, how positive he sees hyperliquid. He talked about Itna. He even actually developed the idea for Itna, and then the Itna team built it, so Itna. Then he talked about, he also knows a lot about global liquidity. He really understands how everything works. And because he's working in Asia and he's very involved into all these topics, industries, conferences, he's an advisor for many big players. He understands also what is going on in the Asian markets, and you have to know that especially Korea and some of these countries are the main drivers and have the main volumes there. So this is also interesting. So if it is related to exchanges or something like interest payments, so for example, Pendle and so on, these protocols are quite hard to understand for regular people. So I have a hard time to understand a lot of these very complex protocols for like Pendle. Pendle is a protocol where you can actually put down your assets, you get yield on your assets, but then there's some kind of strange system where you can actually sell your future yield to somebody and make already money with selling your future yield and stuff like that. So I just wanted to say, for similar stuff, follow Arthur Hayes. How can you get even more information out of the people? So my rule is always try not to listen what they say, but look what they do. And in crypto, if you know their wallet address, if you know some of the wallets, it's very easy. So you can go to Arkham. Arkham is mostly free. You can go there and put in your favorite influencer's even name most of the time. So Arthur Hayes, you can type in there. You will see what assets Arthur Hayes is actually holding, and they will also notify you, or you can track when actually Arthur Hayes is selling some assets or buying some new assets. So for example, in his wallet, he strongly bought Itna now. He holds Pendle. He's an EtherFi fan. He has got a loads of Ethereum and so on. So you can all see this there. Maybe he's also got a lot of Solana. I'm not sure if they're tracking Solana or if it's just Ethereum wallets that they're tracking there. But this is also a way to know what this kind of people do. So what you could do is you could set up an alert or build your own tool with AI. It's very simple to do that. And the tool will just notify you when Arthur, for example, sells all his Itna. I have checked the point when he sold his last Itna bag. I think it was 4 million of Itna. And it was actually back in December, if I remember that right. And back in December, the Itna price was falling from, I think it was all over $1, and then it fell to below 40. And he sold actually at the peak. So probably because he was involved in the idea very heavily and he knows all these people, he knows probably more than most of the people. So then if you discover that he's dropping all his Itna, probably it's a good time for you also to do the same, right? Yeah, it doesn't have to be right, but people like this are in the cycle for many, many more years, and they're in very different communities and have very different knowledge. So keep that in mind. You could do this. If you are more in gaming, I would follow Elias from Elias Trade and also Alex Becker. Alex is quite a strange guy, that's true, but through Elias and through other connections, he is now also very involved into projects. He is, I'm not sure if he's in the Superverse community, I don't think so, but with Elias and they made the black hole DEX together. So they naturally have a lot of money, but they have connections for Elias Trade, for example. What they have done in the last years, they have made connections to every gaming, I don't know, shop and every developer, every big company, every game developer to implement actually the super token. And I think the goal is to have the assets on the super token, and then basically you are able to take your assets from game to game and you can basically sell it as an NFT and you can build up the value of this asset. So if they talk about gaming, then I would actually follow what they say. But you have to be very careful. They're talking their book. Everybody's talking their book. So be careful. I think that most of the assets that they are shilling are probably good, but you need to watch for the timing. I don't think the timing is good. They have been starting, we have been all waiting for the gaming season to explode the last cycle already. And then we have been waiting now for the last, 1.5, 2 years for the gaming sector to explode, right? So be careful about that. When it is time for gaming, I don't know. But as this time comes, these projects will do very, very well. But don't forget the opportunity cost, meaning that if you buy into some kind of this gaming token and you're underwater and you don't sell it, you're losing not just the money, you're losing also the opportunity to buy a different asset. And because you can't buy the different asset, you're not able to make gains with this other asset. Also keep that in mind. This is the same with everything. This is why it's also much more clever to rent something, not to buy something, because you also have to think about the opportunity cost and also the aspect of freedom, right? If you buy a house somewhere and you're short on money, or meaning that you have actually spent, most of the people spend much more than they have because they have then a loan. But let's imagine you have $1 million, you buy a house for 900,000, 950,000, with taxes you pay $1 million. And then what happens if something strange happens in the world? You will not be able to leave the country probably, because in these times prices come down very heavily. Probably then your house will be maybe worth half, and then you're somehow locked into this region, right? It's very hard to move that. And for crypto, it's basically the same. When you're locked in to something, you don't have the opportunity anymore to make gains in a different asset. This is why it's normally very clever to set stop losses. This is the case in trades where you think, oh, they're going up and up and up and up and up. But then, you know, the time starts to the assets going down. If you don't have a stop loss, you're probably never gonna get out. And then you miss the cycle top. And then you go into a 90 to 99% drawdown because the market or the cycle is over. You could be happy that in the next cycle, these assets come up again. But probably in the next cycle, you have so many new shiny objects, especially now with AI. It's very unlikely that a business model that has been established 3 or 4 years ago, because it was in the last cycle, is still hot. It's possible that these teams adopt to AI and are really working very well. The question is also, do they still have funds if the market goes down very heavily? If they're, like, for example, holding all their assets or treasuries in Ethereum or even in Bitcoin, whatever it is, if this goes down 50%, then, you know, it's very hard also for these teams to continue to developing in the market. So let's see if I have somebody else I could recommend to follow. So yes, I mean, I also follow people talking about gold and silver. So there is like Mike Maloney, which is very famous for quite getting old now, very famous talking about gold and silver. But mainly you have to be careful, these guys, especially the gold bugs, I have the feeling that just talk their book, right? A lot of them have actually found liking in Bitcoin. So Mike Maloney and a lot of the older gold bugs really also started to buy Bitcoin now. I think this is very interesting. And you have seen yesterday, gold went to $3,700, so it's an all-time high again. Silver is also making all-time highs. What this generally means is there's uncertainty in the markets. And maybe it's also the opportunity that there's rumors that they will actually rise the gold price. So the rumor is that the US has got lots of gold in Fort Knox. If this is true, we don't know, right? But this gold is still valued at $42.22 per ounce. So it's heavily undervalued. If the government or whoever is in control would actually decide to raise this value to market value, and they, you know, they continue now that gold, they let the gold run now. So let's say gold runs to $4,000 or $5,000. Then they adopt the value of the holdings. This could very much help them to actually get rid of all their debts, right? So this, and also because of that, I have the feeling some people are buying gold, and the silver price, I guess, is going up because people cannot really afford gold anymore, so they're starting to buy silver. Overall, this indicates not a good, it's basically not a good sign, right? In some of the countries, they tell you about war and stuff like that. So people are getting more worried, and this is actually a flight to safety. We should also see that for the Bitcoin price, normally the gold price is starting first, then Bitcoin is following. I guess most of the people out there haven't really understood what Bitcoin is. And if I talk to other people not in my circles, very often, people don't have any idea what's going on, why they should have Bitcoin, what the purpose is, how the system really works. So yeah, if you look at this asset, then actually all the time gold was leading and Bitcoin was running after it. Overall, I think the markets are really, as we have discussed in the latest weeks already, they are set up to run now. Maybe they started to run today. I have told you in the beginning that a lot of coins turned green. If you look at the markets, if you look at all the altcoins, including Ethereum, we can also see that it is breaking out. So we are now into an area which is basically called alt season on the alt season index, meaning Bitcoin dominance is going down. Alt season should explode. And we almost forgot how extreme the last cycles have actually been. So to imagine now that coins could go up 10x, even bigger ones, 10x or 5x, or it's really crazy if you think about this. Will not happen, very unlikely happen to Bitcoin, I would say. The most common price is around 150. Maybe it goes almost to 200, but I think then it will snap down. I don't even think it will go to 200. But what we need now is Bitcoin slowly grinding up and altcoins exploding. This would be the perfect scenario. So we will see how everything goes. This is all from today's video. Like always, if you want to have more insights on the market, we have developed Market Peak AI, which will help you to understand when the cycle is over and when you should get out of the market. Your free access, if you go there, the data is 7 days delayed, so you could be too late, but this is your decision. We're also building other tools, like you can track influencers, and you don't have to watch all the videos. Our tool will tell you which influencer is talking about which coin and how right have they been in the past. So basically, this will allow you not to have to watch 10 hours video a day or read a lot. So this will just give you an AI knowledge that is accurate and will tell you basically what the narrative from these people is and if there is an overlap in narrative. So stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want, leave a comment, of course, a like, send it to your friends, and I see you tomorrow. Take care, all the best for you, and bye-bye.